All right, we are live.
Hey everybody, this is Papa Wiggs here. I'm with Wiggs as well. He's in another room because we're going to do our second mock draft. Our mock draft today is going to be for a 12-team PPR, and it's going to include for starting positions one QB, two running back, two receiver, a tight end. We're not going to and a flex. We're not going to be drafting a defense and kicker this time. We're going to wait a little bit longer once training camp gets started and we get a better idea of exactly where we feel teams are with that, because it's from a defense kicker perspective it's really kind of hard to predict with all the movement that's went on this off season. So we just decided to focus on this. We're also going to do 5 minute picks. That doesn't mean we're going to take 5 minutes, but as we're picking, we're going to kind of give our thought process in regards to why we're picking who we're picking and go from there. So anyways, with that, Wiggs, did you want to add anything?
No, I think we just hop right on into it. You're good to go.
All right, jump on in.
All right, so pick three up to me. So as you guys can see, I'm taking pick three. Papa Wiggs is taking the 12th pick here. We're trying to give a little variety here on the positions. In my three spot, I think my best option personally is taking a receiver. Now, there's a few here on the board that I think I could take, and I think right now probably the best option is going to be Tyreek, so I'm going to take him. Um, I think you can make an argument for JJ, Amon-Ra, and I think um, Jamar Chase, but I think the safe pick is Tyreek there.
All right, now we're up to me, and as anybody that's played fantasy with me knows, I value wide receivers. I know some people put more value on a running back and stuff. So with this pick, it's relatively easy for me. So I know some people might say go Puka. I'm gonna go Garrett Wilson. The reason is that I just think Garrett's gonna have a great season this year, and I'm really high on him. And that leads me into my round two pick. And again, I know some people won't agree with my strategy, but as I've mentioned to Wiggs, the champ is in the house from last year, which is me. So again, I put stock in receivers, and this time I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go with Puka from the Rams.
I think both those picks are pretty good too. I mean, you get kind of like a nice little middle ground of running. Garrett Wilson's gonna be top five this year if Roger stays healthy, and Puka Nacua could easily be like a top seven to top 10 range as well. So I mean, overall, I think it's a pretty solid pick. Now, Laporta going as early as he did here in the second round, I don't know if I necessarily agree with that, but that is the CPU, so I don't know. That one's a little tougher for me to judge. Now that I'm sitting here in this round, a lot of the top receivers have been taken off the board. I think I'm a little more flexible with what I can do here in this spot. And I do think since I'm only, what, 5 picks away from my next pick, I could get away with taking a running back here. And I think the running back I personally would take would be Travis Etienne. I think he has a slight edge over Achane, and he won't have to really worry about splitting reps like Achane might. Aside from that, I might have considered Nico Collins, um, but I don't know. There's the competition in Houston at receiver, so I don't know how to fully grasp that yet. But now that we get into this third round here again, this is something where I think I can be a little bit flexible still. I think I could maybe get a receiver later, so I might take a running back here. I'm kind of scrolling through to see what we got. Actually, trying to think. Okay, honestly, I'm actually going to take Mike Evans here. I think with him being the top receiver in Tampa Bay, it's a safe pick, and he's been over 1,000 yards. I think every single season he's been in the league, if I'm not mistaken. I was maybe considering who you're probably going to pick here in Isaiah Pacheco. that was who I was considering there at my running back, but I think it was smart of me to take a second receiver there, especially with it being PPR.
Well, since I got 2 picks in a row, it doesn't really matter who I pick, right? So, again, I'm gonna go, receiver just because I, I'm a receiver guy. So with this 3rd round pick, I'm gonna take DK Metcalf. I know some people are gonna look at me like, "Oh my god, you picked him over, Pittman and Neighbors." I'm just Metcalf's another guy that I'm pretty high on this year. So I'm comfortable with that pick. And then with my 4th round pick, I'm gonna jump to a running back and I'm gonna take Pacheco from Kansas City. I think Pacheco is gonna have a great year this year, so I'm very comfortable with that. So
I think both those picks are pretty good too. Like, I was contemplating Metcalf myself even earlier in this third round, but Mike Evans has always been super consistent, so I'm like, I'll just stick with that. And he's really only got Chris Godwin to compete with, so
and I don't think Evans was a bad pick. I think the one thing Evans has shown is consistency. So I don't think I think you did well with that pick as well.
yeah, and it's a nice, safe, and comfortable pick, and I already have my wide receiver one in Tyreek, so it's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of a nice combo there. And it's not as nice as your three wide receivers. Puka maybe a little iffy there for me, but Garrett Wilson and DK is a pretty good combo. And then you got Pacheco as RB1, so I think that's pretty good. Now heading into this round for my pick, this is again something where I can be flexible. If I felt like it, I could take a tight end. Um, which I don't think I'm going to do personally. I think I'm going to wait a few rounds here. You do have McBride on the board who you could take. I just think I could pick a receiver or a running back here that would get me more points. And with that being said, I am going to go with, my guy that I'm, thinking he's going to have a really good year this year that I know you're going to disagree with, but I'm taking George Pickens here with my pick. Going to hold on to a tight end until a later round. I know you might not be sold on him, but I personally think he's going to be great with Wilson. That's just me. But now,
That's a discussion for another day.
I mean, yeah, definitely. But I think locking him down as my flex receiver is pretty good. And even just filling in those 1 and 2 spots when Evans and Hill would be on a bye week is also really nice. Now, this is where it's going to be a little bit harder for me because I have I think quite a few options here on the board. I could go with another receiver here in T. Higgins or even Keenan Allen. Amari Cooper still on the board. You do have Christian Kirk if you want to go down that far. I don't know if I'd go that far. But then I do have someone like Alvin Kamara who does receive the ball quite a bit as a running back, and they don't have their second receiver, Michael Thomas, I believe, anymore on the Saints. So for me, I think I'm just gonna lock down my second running back in Alvin Kamara. I think that's pretty safe, especially with how everything's looking right now, because there's still a lot of receivers on the board here, so that might be not bad. I could have gone Kyle Pitts. I could have won McBride. I've passed up on two really good tight ends, so with the full-on forehead cam in, guys, he's focusing up.
Sorry about that, guys. Um, you know what? I'm gonna go with a little surprise pick here. Uh, and I'm gonna take Bowers from the Raiders. Um, you know what? From a rookie perspective, I've just got a gut feeling about him this year. And I'm also gonna go with my guy,
Samir
Zamir
White.
White. So usually I don't I try to stay away from picking guys that are on the same team, but I always consider tight end as kind of a bonus depending on where you get them. So I don't feel having the tight end on the same team as a running back or receiver or even quarterback is a bad thing. So I don't have a problem with that, and I think Zamir White is he's gonna have a great year. That's just my opinion. I spoke about him before, and so I'm high on him. So
Do you think you maybe could have got away with Bowers like in that seventh round at all?
well, I could have maybe reached for him in the hope that he was there in the seventh round. But when my strategy when I'm picking at the 12th position is you got to be careful. You got to realize that even though you're drafting two guys in a row in a snake draft, that you got to wait a while. So sometimes you got to look at maybe someone that you're high on a little bit earlier than you might want to because there's a more likely chance that that guy's going to be gone if you wait.
That's fair. I was thinking maybe you could wait till the next one, even if you didn't get Bowers, maybe getting something like Engram or even like Goddard. Like if you didn't go a tight end route there, who would you have picked? I'm assuming a receiver, right? Like Terry McLaurin or
Well, let me tell you after you're done making your picks.
okay, okay, fair enough, fair enough. Well, right now, with me not having a tight end at the moment, I think that's going to be the route here. And looking at the receivers up on the board, it's not anyone I'm like 100% like absolutely wanting to get at the moment. So I think I'm going to take George Kittle. To me, he's still a top five tight end in the league, and he's surrounded by a lot of weapons. And like you said, as a tight end, he's kind of just a bonus player, and Kittle's always been like consistently like top five there as a tight end. So I think I'll lock him down there. And only one receiver came off the board, so I think overall that's pretty good there for me. But I don't know if I'm still sold on any. I'm gonna stick with what I did in the last draft here, okay? Calvin Ridley. I will stick with the man. I think he's going to be the best receiver on that team. I don't think it'll be by a lot. I think D Hop will still be good, but I kind of like that pick, and it kind of goes nice with the receivers I already have.
Yeah, not a bad pick. Not a bad pick, and I don't disagree with that. So right here again, I like to have options open at receiver, and uh, I'm gonna go with my guy Deontay. I like Deontay's situation this year in Carolina. I think that like I've mentioned in previous videos, I think that he's going to be a really good addition to Bryce Young. I also feel like it's never a bad thing to have a couple extra receivers on your bench just in case some of your other guys maybe aren't producing. I'm not saying that Garrett or Puka or DK won't produce. I'm just saying that it's always nice just in case you might not like a matchup at a flex or something. Or Deontay could be the Puka this year, or the Cooper Cup of a couple years ago, where maybe he starts going off. So I'm comfortable with taking Deontay here. Uh, Again, that's just my opinion. So and then I know this might surprise some people out there, but I'm going to go with Jalen Warren here as running back. The reason I picked Warren is because I really do think, yes, he's going to split with Najee, but I think Warren is gonna have a better year than Najee. That's just my opinion, and I think he would be a good running back to fill in. Um, for Zamir and Isaiah. Uh, when they're on bye. So I definitely feel good about that pick as well.
Did you consider Nick Chubb in this spot?
Um, you know, I've been thinking about Chubb, and I'm just, in my opinion, can change once we start seeing what's going on in training camp. Personally, I don't think Chubb is going to be out there right away. I could be wrong, but I think he could end up, starting on the pub list uh, at the beginning of the season, just for the fact that he's had issues with his ACL before, and now he's blowing out both of them. So I, I just um, I just don't feel like drafting him this high up for me is comfortable. Yeah, I could take a chance on him, but I really don't think that he's going to be um, ready to go at the beginning of the year. He could surprise me, and he could be, but I think he might not be activated until at least the fifth game of the year. So
That's
uh,
fair. I only asked because I saw that like he's been looking good in his training recently. I mean, he was squatting 550 today, so I thought maybe that'd be like a good look maybe in his direction, but yeah, that's like if he would have fell to me in this round, I would have taken him. Like that would have been like the guy I'd be like, "Oh, no one's gonna have a bye week there in the first 4 weeks. I could get away with taking him in this round." Um,
yeah, and had I had more running backs, if I didn't only just have two, I would have considered it.
yeah.
You
And I
know,
think I think your Warren pick's pretty good as well, so all right, so now that we're sitting here in the eighth round, me personally, I don't like taking rookies early. Now, that's dependent on what we're doing. Like, with our keeper league right now, with the PPR, like that might be different with certain people, but I'm kind of sitting here looking at the board and I'm like, there's not like a whole lot that I personally like from a receiver because you got like Brian Thomas, which no offense to Jacksonville, I just don't think a rookie on Jacksonville is going to do anything this year. I got a few running backs and Zach Moss and Eckler I could pick from. I got JSN I can pick, which might be a little bit of a sleeper pick this year because I think he'll actually really have a good year, but it's going to be like that second man behind DK kind of thing. So it's not going to be anything crazy. Who I'm looking at right now is Keon Coleman. Because I think Josh Allen has to throw to someone this year, right? And why not utilize a talent like Keon? And I think he could actually genuinely have a good year as a rookie. And I think going into this round, considering the fact that I have five receivers already, two running backs, I think I have to consider taking a running back or a quarterback here. I think there are some options on both ends here that I could pick from. But I'm going to stick to what I said earlier in this offseason to you. I think there's a lot of depth at quarterback this year, and I think I might be able to chance it here. Possibly. Let me take a look here. Oh, this one's tough. This is actually a really tough pick for me right now. Um, Brian Robinson was taken already. I don't know if I'm sold on Eckler. Devin Singletary, no offense, that offense is just not going to be it for him. Maybe. I think I actually end up taking a quarterback here. I think I'm going to go with Brock Purdy. I know I
not a bad
have.
pick, and I think Coleman was a good pick for you too. In the other round, I could see him being one of the top rookie receivers this year, just based on the weapons that the Bills have. So
Yeah, I think he could be top
I think he
three.
did well. I think he did well on that pick. So
And I think Brock Purdy's pretty good too with the weapons with CMC and Debo, Kittle, Ayuk. Like he's got so much he can do, and he showed it last year. So I think that was safe. I think other than that, I might have gone probably with Tua, but I didn't really want to go with the same quarterback, same receiver. So I think we see a quarterback and wide receiver taken here.
So I think what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna, I think I'm gonna take a wide receiver. Again, as I mentioned, I put a lot of value on wide receivers. I like to have multiple wide receivers over multiple running backs. I'm, I know some people might not be as high on this pick as me, but uh, I have a feeling that he's going to be a good asset to this team this year, and he's going to have a good season. So I'm going to go with Jamison Williams here. So I feel really good about that pick, especially given the other wide receivers that I have already. To me, this is a pick where I could easily say, okay, take a chance on him, and if he pops off, that's great. That could put me into position, like I always tell Wiggs, I'm always thinking ahead. Maybe there's a potential for a trade if he starts doing well to solidify my team down the road. So I'm gonna go with Williams here, and then the next pick I'm kind of torn. Uh, but I'm gonna go with QB here, and I got to do it just because I know other people um, in
Goff.
my league think I'm crazy, but I'm going
Jared
with Jared
Goff.
Goff.
Yep.
And I'm high on Jared Goff this year. He had a statistically last year, and from a yards perspective, from a TD throwing perspective, he was actually better than Patrick Mahomes. And I don't think there's anything that I've seen with Detroit's offense that's necessarily going to slow him down this year. So I'm comfortable with taking Golf here.
I don't disagree with that pick at all. I think Jared Goff is underrated, and he's had back-to-back seasons of over 4,000 yards. For me, I don't know, looking at this board, if I would have picked Jamison Williams or Cortland Sutton or Shakir or Samuel over the guy I'm going to take next. Um, and it might even benefit certain people a bit more if a certain trade goes down that I've been seeing rumblings on, the X timeline. But for me right here in this spot, I'm thinking one of two ways, but I'm not going to mention one of them yet because I don't know yet. But for this first pick, I think I'm going to lock down my running back crew here just a little bit more. Let me just scroll through to make sure I'm not missing anything. I'm going to go hot take. I know you're not a fan of the team. You wouldn't draft said player, but I'm taking Zeke. I think him around the goal line is always nice for potential touchdowns. Doesn't even have to pop off in the passing game or anything. If he just gets a few goal line touches and gets me a touchdown a game as a backup, so be it. If my two other guys can just stay healthy, I wouldn't even have to worry about it. Looking back on it, maybe I could have drafted Zach Moss or Brian Robinson instead of Keon Coleman, but I kind of like my pick. I'm taking Zeke a little bit late. I know it might be a bit of a hot take, but he is back in the Cowboys offense, and they are bound to use him in the red zone, especially within the five, because he's, pound it to the ground type of running back. Like he likes to get into the end zone and get the ball quite a bit. But to move on to my point of picking certain receivers before said player, looking at the board, even Dobbs, I won't even consider before this guy, and I've heard potential trade talks about a certain player reuniting with a certain quarterback, and I think getting this player this late is kind of a steal. I'm going to go Jacoby Myers because I've heard talks that there's some works and maybe the Jets trying to work something out with Devonte Adams. Now, how true that is, I don't know, but I wouldn't put it past them. Reunite Adams with Rodgers and then 1-2 punch with Wilson, that'd be kind of nuts.
Yeah, and I actually don't disagree with that pick there. I think Jacoby Myers is underrated. So So I don't think that's a bad pick at all.
And I think I
So
could have even taken him the round before and maybe just settled for Brown as my running back as a backup because I think he'll be involved in the passing game quite a bit in Cincinnati. But I don't know, something just right there at this moment just feels right about taking Zeke. And I know that might be different for you, but
well, right here, I think I'm gonna go, and this might, some people might not agree with this approach, but I'm actually gonna go with tight end at this spot. I always like to kind of look at drafting two tight ends if possible, just to um, cover my bases. And I'm actually kind of surprised that this tight end's still here. And given the fact that Brock Bowers, who I do think is going to have a great year, so I don't second guess taking him when I did. I'm comfortable with Brock Bowers where he's at, but he's a rookie, so who knows? He could stumble. I think I'm gonna
oh,
I'm gonna go with
Cole
Komet
Kmet,
from
yep,
Chicago here,
yep, I like that.
and uh, I think Caleb Williams is gonna be looking to him a lot, and I think that Komet's gonna, I don't think he's gonna, explode like some of the other tight ends, but I feel good about going with him right here, uh, as my backup tight end, and then in this pick, we're getting a little bit deeper, and I think I'm gonna. I think I got a couple different options here. I could go quarterback,
Could go Jerry
and
Judy.
get a backup. I could go another wide receiver, which I'm always you know a big fan of doing. Um, I'm not necessarily set on always having having four running backs. I'm comfortable with the three I have. So I'm so right now I'm kind of thinking, okay, I think I'm gonna go wide receiver. And so looking at my options, uh, I'm gonna go with Judy.
I like that
Again,
pick for that
it's a
late.
shot in the dark. Um, Obviously, he's got other receivers in Cleveland that he's going to be competing with. Uh, but I, I, I just I think there's a lot of upside with Judy. Uh, I'm very comfortable with that.
Let me ask you this here quick. Let's say Cole Kmet was off the board because looking at that team 11, the CPU that we have there, if they ended up taking Cole Kmet, which I think if it's a real person, I think Kmet's off the board before he gets to you, who would you have picked as like another option? Like would it have been another receiver or running back? Like just gives
Had
people some
Komet
insight
not been
there.
there, I would have waited to taken a tight end, and I probably would have taken a receiver. Whether it would have been Judy or depending on if somebody else was out there. Let's say maybe Mike Williams was out there.
Yeah.
Cause and some I would have considered that. So that's kind of what I would have looked at that position. But with Komet being there and falling in that spot, I just felt like, especially given the fact that I drafted a rookie tight end earlier, which again I'm really high on Bowers. I don't want anybody to mistake me drafting Komet as an indication that I'm second guessing myself, because I'm not. Bowers will be my starter, but I feel like Komet would be a good bye week candidate to replace him. And if Bowers does stumble, I think Komet would definitely be a solid tight end to put in to replace him.
I think Kmet even in this spot would probably be your tight end one. Don't get me wrong, he doesn't have Fields like he did last year, but Cole Kmet was kind of slept on last year. And like he was like top five, and he was having like an insane year. Almost, I think he had almost 1,000 yards, and he had a ton of touchdowns. Like he had a pretty solid year. So like getting him this late in any draft is kind of nuts to me. I could totally see people like dropping down earlier in the draft to pick him up as well, but
Well, and like we talked about before, the one thing I've always said with a rookie quarterback, he's got two friends, the running back and
in the
and the
tight end,
tight
yep.
end.
So I think getting him when you did is like really good. I was even considering him with one of my two picks prior, but I just felt like I needed to lock down a running back and I couldn't pass up on Myers. But I was definitely considering him within those two. And I think if I had a third running back earlier, like if I would have taken Brian Robinson over Coleman, um, I would have taken Komet this round as well. So I really like that pick. Moving into this round here, for me at least, this is a little bit of a tougher spot because I'm not one to typically like consider drafting a second quarterback in a draft. I usually don't actually take a second quarterback, but I'm in a spot right now where I have options because I have Kirk Cousins, I have Aaron Rodgers, and I have a few other people down further on the board, and I think I might actually be able to wait with me thinking about it. I might actually take a chance here on a player. This would be a major chance here. Just trying to think if that's the move I want to make here. Um, I don't think I don't know if I can pass up on Kirk Chains or Aaron Rodgers here. I was thinking maybe J.K. Dobbins, but he just never stays healthy. Maybe like strengthen up my depth there at running back, but I just like I said, he never stays healthy, so it's hard for me to be full-fledged with that. But I think because I think this offense is going to be nuts. I think they're going to be really good. I think they actually have potential to have three guys over 1,000 yards this year. I think I'm going to go Kirk Cousins here as my backup quarterback and possibly even my starter.
Yeah, I don't hate that pick. I think, I think Brock Purdy's going to have a good year. And I definitely think that Cousins is a great, bye week option. Uh, and so I don't disagree with that pick. So, um,
I was thinking maybe like I could get away with like a J.K. Dobbins, but then I'm like, I don't know. I potentially thought of maybe taking Joshua Palmer. Um, but again, I don't know there. Like I'm still considering Palmer for this spot, but I also feel like I need to strengthen my depth here a little bit at running back, or at least have a backup option. But I'm not liking any of my options here at running back. I wish I would have drafted one sooner. Um, but I think I have to take one here. Like I really think I have to, and I am gonna pull a U from the last draft. I'm gonna take someone um, who could be a good backup option to the said starter and could get a bulk of the carries if the starter does get hurt. And for that reason, I think I'm gonna take Ty Chandler. I think right now it's kind of safe. And like I said, if Aaron Jones were to get hurt, I think it's a pretty good option to have even at like a flex spot to have Ty Chandler because he showed last year that he does have potential to play really well in a role where he can get a lot of carries.
not a bad pick. Don't disagree. I'm going to go with running back at this position, and I am going to take Kamani Vidal from the Chargers. Uh, this is kind of a shot in the dark, and I think it's kind of dependent on how Edwards and Dobbins do for the Chargers. I just know that Harbaugh likes to run the ball, and he likes to mix up his running backs. So I'm gonna take a shot in the dark with him there, given how late we are in the draft. I feel comfortable with doing that, and I'm very comfortable with the running backs that I have right now. And then my last pick for this draft, again, I always like to have a backup quarterback. I know some people don't like to do that, but I'm going to go with Mayfield.
Oh, interesting.
I think that Mayfield is uh, a good bye week replacement for Goff. And I also would feel comfortable with Mayfield if for some reason, Goff went down and putting him in there. I don't think Mayfield had a terrible year last year. So I fully anticipate Goff is going to stay healthy. So but I don't want to get stuck in the position where, I don't have a second quarterback on there just in case something
Yeah.
happens. So
Yeah, for me, like I never was a fan of taking a backup quarterback. I kind of always like banked on my quarterback to stay healthy, and if he didn't, I was just gonna pick up someone and suffer. But um, after last year, seeing a lot of the injuries, I kind of felt like I had to take Cousins when I did. And I'm honestly kind of surprised he took Mayfield. I thought maybe you were gonna go with like a Will Levis possibly.
well, I was thinking about it, and and I'm not totally sold on a running back where I picked. I know some people might have taken a shot on a maybe an Adam Thielen or something like that. But I also know that the running backs tend to drop like flies. So
Yeah,
uh, so I'm okay with three running backs because I usually feel like I have options to potentially trade down the road if I need to. Um, so so I was kind of torn there, but I'm still comfortable with that pick. Just given the depth of my receiving core, having six receivers on the roster now makes me comfortable, especially at the flex spot. Having Komet too there, that gives me another flex option. So, um, you know, I'm feeling good about that.
yeah, not bad, not bad. I was kind of surprised by the running back you took, but I could totally see why you took him because J.K. Dobbins never seems to stay healthy. So even if it was just the RB2 in J.K. Dobbins that got hurt, I could totally see that running back stepping into the passing game and being pretty used. And you never know with Gus Edwards either. He's been hurt a few times in his career as well. So like for all we know, your running back there in Vital could be the RB1 at some point in the season. So I don't hate the pick, and I think with your receiving core that you have, you'd be fine, especially with your starting three. Like your wide receiver one and two obviously are gonna have good years, and then Metcalf as your flex. That alone is kind of nuts to think about. And then you got Pacheco there as your running back. I kind of like the pick because you never know what happens throughout the year, and for all you know, kind of like what we saw last year with Williams, like Vital could just pop off and be a guy. For me here with my last pick, kind of on the fence between a few different things. I could take a backup tight end. I've been thinking of the Tennessee tight end. I can't say his name personally. Okunwo or however you say it. I've also even thought of along the lines of Jonu Smith, but the only reason I thought about that is because of his year last year. But looking at it, I don't know if I'd go that route because Tua really didn't utilize his tight ends a whole lot last year. And when he did, it was like never really. I didn't see a lot in the red zone because I had like a few of the guys there um, throughout the year last year, and I could never just get a grasp on that team. So I was thinking maybe I go tight end. But then I'm also like, this is what I do every year. I kind of just play the waiver wire for a tight end and hope I get one or hope my tight end and George Kittle stays healthy. So I think I'm personally going to chance it here. And I think I'm going to go Adam Thielen. Just give myself a little more depth there at wide receiver in case if you guys get hurt. And I think Thielen could possibly be a sleeper this year. He had over 100 catches, over 1,000 yards last year. With Deontay on the team now, he could have a little added relief, and he might even have more crucial touchdowns and more points on the board overall. Um, but could I have taken a tight end? Yeah, I was kind of hoping Likely would have dropped down to me. If Andrews got hurt, Likely shown he's been reliable, and I could see them using two tight ends a lot more this year with Likely. So You never know. I think they're set up pretty good there in Baltimore too. Having Derrick Henry, you could run a lot more two tight end setups because that could look like you're making a run play, but then you could change that around and kind of have it be favorable in your sense, if that makes any sort of sense, because they could just run a pass and boom, Likely, or boom, Andrews. Like,
Right. No, and I don't think Thielen was a bad pick there, so
I would have
um
liked a second tight end, but I think I would have had to have Likely drop down to
well,
me.
just a hot take, someone that I think might be overlooked this year is Conklin from the Jets. If
Yeah,
if
I was
Rodgers
thinking about him because Rodgers does
if
utilize his tight
Rodgers
ends.
stays healthy this year, Roger has a knack for using his
Yeah,
tight ends. So
and Conklin,
um,
when he was in Minnesota, showed that he's a pretty good tight end. So with Rodgers, like I could definitely see him being good. I just would have to see it play out. I kind of would have to see if Adams got traded over to the Jets as well, type thing. Not that I think it'll happen, but
right. Well, that's the draft. Just a couple thoughts on my end. In regards to my team, and then Wiggs, I'll let you jump in and stuff. I'll be honest with you. I know the CPU kind of they mix it up and stuff. I'm shocked that Garrett Wilson and Puka. I'll be honest. I'm shocked that multiple receivers that dropped down as far as they did. So I am, with this particular mock draft, I am ecstatic about uh my early round picks, not just with my receivers, but with my tight end and my running backs. I'm, I feel like this was a pretty solid draft for me. I'm not saying Wiggs that you didn't have a solid one. I think you had a solid draft too, but I'm really happy with the team that I drafted here. And to me, I think that if I had to point out one thing, I'm really surprised that Komet dropped down as low as he did. To your point, Wiggs. So I think I do think that he is being a little overlooked this year. I think compared to some of the other tight ends out there, that he's just as good, if not a better option, given the situation that the Bears are in with
yeah.
a rookie quarterback. So I was happy to be able, to get a backup tight end like him where I did. So with that, let me throw it over to you, Wiggs, and you can throw in any thoughts on your team.
Yeah, I'm with you on the same page of I'm surprised like players like Wilson and Puka did drop down. Like I could maybe see one of them, but for both of them to drop down, it's kind of surprising. Like the main thing I want to point out is Jahmyr Gibbs going at 11. I think if anything, he's a mid to late second round pick. More so on the late second round pick in my eyes at least. I could see the likes of McCaffrey going as early as he did. I think Brees Hall with the CPU is like probably two or three picks too early. I personally would have taken Jefferson or Chase before Brees Hall from a fantasy perspective. I could see an argument for Taylor in the first round, but maybe like, the 11-12 spot, not as early as he went. Um, the biggest one for me was Gibbs. Like, I think Williams would have been better than Gibbs. I think taking Wilson for sure is better than Gibbs. I would have had Wilson going probably at 9 and Puka probably at like 11. So I could have seen Taylor and Gibbs dropping down to 11, 12, or later in the second round, but it was a
Me
little
personally,
surprising.
I think that um, nothing against Jonathan Taylor, so don't take this the wrong way. I just think that Taylor being drafted at number 9 is too high. I think that uh, I think you're gonna get more from from some of the receivers that were passed up.
Yeah,
And I agree with you with Gibbs as well. So if there was two picks in the first round that I thought could have waited, it would be Taylor and Gibbs. I think that people are going to find out that they're going to get more bang for their buck
yeah.
with a receiver there instead of those. And again, that's just my opinion because, as I mentioned earlier, I value wide receivers uh, a lot higher than running backs.
Well,
So
yeah, and you look at the receivers that were out on the board, you got to think like Garrett Wilson's going to be catching the ball 6 or 7 times a game, probably having a good 90 plus yards a game as well. Same with Puka. Like, I know we're drafting with the CPU, but there's got to be some sort of data mining that they do with sleepers. So, like, this has got to be somewhat relevant to what people are actually drafting. And it's kind of shocking to me to see it like you said, like
right.
Taylor and Gibbs definitely were drafted early. I still think Brees Hall was drafted just like a pick or two early. Like I definitely still think you take Chase at least. I'm not 100% sold on Jefferson this year, but I could see an argument for both those guys being ahead of him. Maybe even St. Brown. But
No, I hear you.
I like where Bijan was drafted. Taylor and Gibbs definitely needed to drop. I think looking at it right now, probably mid second round because I think Kyren's a better pick than both of them at this moment. Because Gibbs also has competition with Montgomery. I don't know where people's heads are with that. Like I get he started taking reps over at the end of last year, but to me, like mid second round around the Barkley range is where I would have taken him. Because I definitely would have taken Garrett Wilson or Puka Nacua or Brandon Ayuk before taking those two guys. Like the only running
No,
back
I
I would
hear
have
you.
taken would have been like Kyren ahead of Ayuk. But
Did you want to add anything about your team and your draft, or are we good, or
um
what?
my team, I think there'd be like one or two things I'd maybe change around. Looking at it, I think maybe, especially with where I got a few players in Ridley and Coleman and Myers, maybe I could have taken like James Cook instead of George Pickens. Um, I might have even been able to take like Alvin Kamara, where I took Pickens and maybe taken Joe Mixon that next round and locked down like three really good running backs. Because I think later on in the draft with Calvin Ridley and Coleman, I locked down a pretty good flex in my eyes at least. So I think maybe I could have had a stronger running back core because looking at it, like Elliott might not be a bad backup, but I don't know what I'm going to get out of Chandler at all. I think I could even drafted the same and maybe changed around my pick with Coleman and went with Robinson instead, or even Zach Moss, and that might have been a little bit better as well. But other than that, I think things
No,
panned
I
out
think you
pretty
still.
well.
I think your pick. You still did well. So
Like it would just be like a minor tweak of drafting one more running back earlier because I think getting Tyreek, Evans, Pickens, and Ridley was like really good for me at receiver that I probably could have taken a running back instead of Coleman. Because I think even looking at Myers later down on the board, I think that might even be a better option than Coleman. Like,
no, I think you did. I think you did well. So don't second guess yourself. But again, I think this was another really good mock draft, Wigs, and stuff. So I think I hope people are getting benefit from this. I know that we've got a lot more content that's going to be coming in regards to rankings and sleepers and all that kind of stuff. So hang in there with us, guys. We're pounding out the content, and please check us out on our YouTube channel, subscribe, X, Snapchat, Instagram. Check them all out and let and follow. Give us a follow, give us a like. Anything we appreciate. So, any final thoughts, Wigs?
I think you summed it up pretty good. I think we're good to go.
Alrighty. As always, peace out.